Hi there guys, and welcome to the second edition of the Cover Zero Roundtable. Once again, we've got myself hosting, Simon Conboy, and we've got my friend Arnie, who you may be familiar with.
Hi guys.
Our resident Titans fan, and we've got a new addition this week, our graphics maestro. What do you want to be known as on this?
I'll just be Dan.
He wants to be Dan. Fair enough. So Dan, he's a Cardinals fan. So, much like I introduced the other guys last week, Dan, why are you a Cardinals fan?
Well, it was what was it? It was the playoff game in the Super Bowl year, the Cardinals, the Eagles Cardinals game that you showed me one day. And
NFC Championship game. I think it was 2006 or 7.
Yeah, I think it was 07.
2006.
One of the two, and it was a game where Fitz went absolutely bananas on that Eagles defense. I was just like, I like this team, I like this guy, much to the disappointment of Conboy, who wanted me to be an Eagles fan.
I was, yeah, because I really hate the Eagles, so I thought, have you follow a team I really hate?
Yeah, just to turn around and...
Instead, you went with one of the most inoffensive teams in the NFL.
Well, yeah, and then, it's also no one knows who the Cardinals are.
Yeah, because they're so inoffensive. But, so who are some of your favourite players in Cardinals history? Or at least your version of Cardinals history?
In my version, obviously, Fitzgerald, Bolden.
Yeah, it's kind of given.
Yeah, Bolden, when he was playing for us, obviously retired now. A forgotten guy with Darryl Washington. Everyone's forgotten about him now, but when he was playing, he was great. Kurt Warner, obviously. Patrick Peterson. Basically, most of the current roster.
No love for Calais Campbell?
We do not speak of Traitor Campbell.
Why not? He was very good for a number of years. I know you were a big fan of his.
Right. The only thing I want to see this year is him line up against Taylor Lewan, and Lewan smashes him. That's all I want to see this year.
Right, well, amidst that bitterness, we'll move on. So, obviously, week 2 of the preseason has wrapped up. And our first recording was just before week 1, so we've got a fair bit to catch up on. So we'll start with you, Arnie. Is there anything that's really jumped out to you so far in preseason, both from a Titans perspective and elsewhere?
Well, as a Titans perspective, week 1 wasn't the greatest performance.
At least Jets is pretty rough.
Yeah, especially offensively. I saw a bit of mobility from Mariota. Saw that the leg's not really the problem, so that was okay in week 1. Defensively, I mean, backups and stuff look really good in week 1, but there's not much to go from there. This week's, I was very impressed with our offense this week. The O-line looked amazing. Taylor Lewan, I think he played 35 snaps, didn't give up a pressure, didn't give up a hurry or anything. So back to dominance there.
It's still one thing. We're going to get our weekly Taylor Lewan updates from
me, yeah.
O-line with the most detail. He gave exactly one pressure on this play.
What can I say? I love me some Taylor Lewan. I mean, defensively, the one player there's 2 players that have stood out for us defensively. One is Kevin Byard. I think he's
free safety.
He's the starting free safety, second-year guy.
He played quite well toward the end of last year, I thought.
I think last year, that's when he started starting games. But he is having himself a hell of a preseason right now. He's looking amazing, especially as far as the run stopping is concerned as well. The other one, which is a nice bright spark considering our secondary, is a guy called Callum Reed. He looked very good in the past. I think he only gave a quarterback rating of 36.4. But he looked very, very good. Hopefully that continues and he can maybe hopefully be that number 1 guy that we're missing. But we will see. But overall, I was impressed this week. Other teams, one team I'm really impressed with right now is the Los Angeles Rams. I like
Jared Goff actually does look like an NFL player.
He does. I'm jumping on a bit of their bandwagon at the moment. I got a bit of a soft spot for the Rams, especially with Aaron Donald. But I love Cooper Kupp at the moment. He looks like he's going to be a hell of a player this year. Didn't see much from Todd Gurley, but you never really see much from the run game during preseason. But I just like the way their offense is shaping up. And obviously the defense kind of speaks for itself.
Well, we'll use this as a bit of a segue because obviously the Rams acquired Sammy Watkins in that trade with the Bills. So, I mean, it's a great deal for the Rams, obviously. That it goes from, their receiving group looked like one of the weakest in the league to now actually looking pretty legitimate. I mean, you've got Watkins as long as he's healthy, a legit number one.
Yeah.
Robert Woods is fine as a number two. You've got the rookie they drafted, Everson something. I forgot his name off the top of my head, but they've got talented rookie tight end, and then Kupp in the slot. Tavon Austin doesn't even have a spot in this starting lineup as we speak.
Nah. But I mean, the thing that we saw from the preseason game was he took all of the double coverage, which got Kupp open.
Yeah.
Which I think that was the best part of the acquisition. Okay, he may not see as many numbers with Watkins, but he's going to take a lot of that double coverage, and you're going to see a lot of other receivers go open. And as I said before, if Jared Goff can play smart and not turn the ball over, they should win 6-7 games, I think.
Well, the key for me was that he simply looked like a quarterback. He didn't do anything particularly exceptional. I mean, his preseason is going to take a lot to wow me. But he was going through progressions and was actually moving in the pocket. Whereas last year, he just looked shell-shocked just about every occasion. So it's clear that McVay's got a plan in place. They've got some legitimate players on that O-line. I still think it's a worry, but Whitworth's a stud.
Actually, on that note of Jared Goff, we were talking about this the other day. Do you think Goff makes the argument for sitting your draft picks instead of playing them off the bat? Because he's obviously developed really well. I mean, if you watched the Amazon series, he's actually developed into what looks like a decent passer now, but he wasn't played straight off the bat. Do you think it makes the argument for actually sitting your draft picks?
Well, I've always argued it's a situational thing. If your team's got some talent, particularly up front, then, like, if you look at the Cowboys last year, starting Dak Prescott, obviously it wasn't the plan and they were forced to do so. But if you've got the protection to do it and a sturdy run game and they don't have to do too much, I think it's perfectly reasonable to do so. I think when it's an issue is when, and if, I use this term a lot, but you don't want your player to get carded. When you think back to David Carr with the Texans, he was a very good prospect, drafted number 1 overall by that team when they first formed, and the team was an absolute tire fire. He was the most sacked quarterback in league history over a 4-year span, and it just ruined him. And that's what I saw in Goff last year, playing behind a really bad offensive line on a team with no offensive chemistry, with what looked like very little of a plan. Like, the player is almost doomed in that situation. Whereas if you look at players like Andy Dalton was brought onto a good offense, he was brought in straight away, he managed to thrive. Flacco wasn't asked to do much with the Ravens. I think you can, but I think it's better to have guys sit if their team is a mess.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Do you think that's also why you get like prospects like Blaine Gabbert and the Vikings guy that drafted a couple of Ponder?
Christian Ponder.
Yeah, do you reckon that was their issue, being inserted too quickly?
In Ponder's case, Ponder just probably didn't have the talent to be a high-end NFL quarterback. Just didn't have the arm talent. He actually had a pretty good offense around him. I don't think he was good enough. Gabbert was absolutely rushed in, and he's an example where you've got that other side of the coin as well, where you've got players who play in these crazy spread schemes, and Jared Goff's an example of that don't translate over to the NFL well, and they don't have a lot of experience even within that spread scheme. Because, I mean, you look at Trubisky, he's got 13 starts as a college quarterback. 13.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, they were in All or Nothing. I think they were explaining Goff had never ever taken a snap under centre.
No, and that's true of a lot of players. I don't even. Mariota hadn't before the Titans selected him, and there's a big difference when you look at a guy like, we can use Jameis Winston as a perfect example. He was considered the safer pick because at Florida State you're playing in a pro-style system. You're taking snaps from under centre. You're making reads before the snap. You're doing all the things that you're expected to do in an NFL offense. You're making the same kind of reads, the same kind of progressions. You're learning to read the defense in the same way. You're reading very different defenses, of course, but it's a far smoother transition when the guys just learn it. Say you take Jameis Winston Mariota. Jameis in his rookie season is just learning new plays, new terminology, but he's not having to think about his basic mechanics. So it's an easier transition, whereas Marcus Mariota is having to, I'm sure early on, actively think about his footwork, taking a snap, how many step back he should take before he releases a throw. Those kinds of things that are built into, the pro scheme that Florida State had. Jameis was used to, Mariota wasn't. A lot of these guys coming from college now aren't. It makes things a lot harder.
Well, it also helps Mariota had that beastly O-line to hide behind.
Well, that goes back to what I just said with Dak Prescott. It does help if you've got a fantastic offensive line, a run game that can take pressure off. If you're running if you're running 50 to 60% of the time a game, that's maybe 7-8 less passes that you're attempting. You're not going to have teams blitz you in the same ways that they will if you're a pass-heavy team. It just makes your life easier.
Yeah. Oh, actually, speaking of, it is Gabbert, isn't it? He's been starting a couple of snaps in pre-season for the Cardinals.
Yes.
And everyone's like, "Oh, he looks alright." It's like, yeah, but it's pre-season. But what?
To be honest, he came a long way, I thought, in his time in San Francisco. I think he was well coached there, and that time on the bench has clearly helped him.
Well, there's that, and if anyone's going to get the best out of a player, BA is going to get the best out of a player. It's kind of his thing.
Yeah.
And actually, speaking of Cardinals and preseason, I am so worried.
Yeah, I was going to transition into that. What have you thought of your lot so far?
Oh God, it's just week one. You had BA coming out and saying, what was it? We have 11 wide receivers on this team, and about only 2 can play in the NFL. Fantastic. Thanks for that, BA. Week 2, can't stop the run against the Bears of all bloody people.
The Bears are a good run team.
Yeah, I know, but
they're a good run team. One of the best interiors in the league, and Jordan Howard's a stud.
Yeah, but
although it was that other running back that was cutting you up.
Yeah, but that's my point. I mean, I think if anything, it has really severely exposed what Calais Campbell leaving has done for that D line. Because the guy he was so big, he could get in on any run play. He was just so long. But I think it's.
Well, the thing is, you've got that. Kumdici is one of the players that's impressed me. He's stepped up and played quite well. But expecting anyone, to do what Calais Campbell did in what is effectively his first year, because last year was kind of just a wash for him. Obviously a tall order. There's a lack of experience along that defensive line. Actually, there's not a lack of experience. There's a lack of talent. Nkemdiche is a high-end talent, but the other guys, I'm just not sure they're on a high level. I think Campbell has hidden some of the issues that they've got in that front seven over the last few years because his level of play has been that high.
Well, it also doesn't help. I think the Dansby's currently not playing in pre-season. I think he's like got something wrong with his legs. Was it Kevin Minter? I think we got rid of the other.
Yeah, he's with the Bengals now.
Yeah, we're really missing him as well. So it doesn't help. Yeah, the D line is one thing, but the interior linebackers just can't do it. They couldn't set up properly to plug the gaps. I mean, the D line would get decent enough disruption, but the interior linebackers were just woeful.
But this is what we were going back to. We were speaking about a couple of weeks ago on the podcast. The problem with the Cardinals at the moment is there is no pass rush there, and the front seven is not very good. It's been depleted in the years.
Well, I think the pass rush will be there when the season begins, because you've got, unless Chandler Jones gets lazy, he's got his money now.
Yeah.
And because last year was by far his best season as a professional. He'd been good for the Patriots before, but not exceptional. Last year he was great. They should get the rush. My worry is this team's ability, and much like Dan just said, to stop the run up the middle. And I mentioned this in the season preview. It's one of my biggest concerns, because they play Dion Buchanan there, and he's a safety at the end of the day. He's not a big body. He's a good player, but you've got that, and then you've got the inexperience of Hassan Reddick. You might play Dansby, who's obviously supremely experienced, but he's probably not got the legs to play every down these days. Combined with the lack of talent along the front three. Like I say, Nkundichi's got a lot of talent, but beyond that, there's not much. There's not much depth there. It concerns me. It really does.
Yeah, it's odd actually, thinking back to what was it? I think it was the 15-16 season, I think, where the Cardinals turned out to have an absolute buttload of depth on that defense. I mean, we had people going down and people
I mean, you could argue across the board. A couple of years ago, the offense had a lot of depth. Defensively, the front seven had depth. There weren't many pass rushers, but there was some solid players across the board. It's the same problem the Bengals have had. They've just lost so many players in the last couple of years that they're playing a lot of inexperienced guys. There's a lot of unknowns there, and it's just kind of hoping that it all comes together.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals are going through, actually, funnily enough, also one of my favourite players of all time. We're in that transition period we had when Dockett retired. There was that massive gap where Dockett used to play,
Well, that's the thing. There's a lot of gaps, because you've got, as much as Floyd was an underwhelming player, he's left a big void in that receiving corps. Then you've got Campbell leaving. That defensive line's that's a big hole in the line. Tony Jefferson was stellar last year. Kevin Minter was a solid player, unspectacular, but a fine player. It's hard to replace all those guys.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know what's going on with the Cardinals this season. I really don't. I mean, we seem to have problems on both sides of the ball. We've got an aging QB. We've got an aging superstar in Fitz, who I think this is his last season. I'm calling this now. Even if we don't win the Super Bowl, Palmer and Fitz are gone at the end of the season.
I think if the team's mediocre, I think so.
Yeah, either that or Fitz takes up a contract with a Super Bowl bound team, because the Cardinals are so close to breaking point.
I can't imagine him in another uniform.
No, I can't either. But I would have said the same about Wes Welker a couple of years ago. So.
Would there be anything unforgivable, actually, if he was to go ring chasing? Is there anything that makes Fitzy not the greatest Cardinal of all time in your eyes?
No, he's still the greatest Cardinal of all time. It's just, I mean, okay, if he goes to the Seahawks, I'd be very bitter. Rams, he won't go to the Niners. It requires, you need to be a good team. Not going to happen. If he went to the Bucks, that would annoy me, because it's your team. If he went to the Titans, it would annoy me.
You have a soft spot for the Titans.
I do. I do love the Titans, except when we face them. But it's like the Patriots. I love the Patriots until we face them, then they are my mortal enemy.
Fair enough. Are there any players outside of the Cardinals that you've seen in pre-season that have impressed you so far?
Yeah, but it's difficult with pre-season. That's the problem.
It is difficult. Yeah.
I remember saying after week 1, I can't remember his name. There was a receiver on the Jets. In the Jets-Titans game, I was just like, oh, the Jets apparently have a wide receiver. Then I remembered they were facing the Titans secondary. Most people can catch on that, so...
I know who you mean, I don't remember his name off the top of my head.
It's the rookie.
Yeah.
Can't remember his name.
I want to say Wilson, but that's probably wrong. But no, he seemed quite good. But there's no real stand-up. I mean, I know people are making a lot of bones about Trubisky. I'm just like...
He did look good in week 1, but, I try not to look too much into it.
Yeah, rookies be rookies in pre-season. It's basically what
I'll head down over to my lot, the Bucks. What have I thought? Special teams is a nightmare, that's all I'm going to say about that. The offensive side, we've looked sharp. I've been impressed with the offensive line. That's the big surprise for me. They've pass protected very well. The weapons, you can see the diversity there. Obviously, it's a very simplified attack, but Jameis looks very sharp. He's been protected well. He's using all of his guys. So other than the one boo-boo against the Jags, which he got lucky it was called back because... Yeah. But other than that, they've looked good. Defensively, we've looked good. Not too many complaints from my end. And we've stayed healthy, which is always the main. And the secondaries looked a lot better than I expected. So, yeah, it's all pretty positive in Tampa from a pre-season perspective, other than the guys that put the foot in football.
Yeah.
That's the other standout.
That has been an issue.
That's the other standout, TJ Watt.
He played okay. I know he had a couple of sacks, but he did okay. For me, actually, the most impressive of the rookie pass rushers I've seen has been Derek Barnett for the Eagles. He's looked really good.
He's looked very good.
I mean, he's got some help there. That Eagles D-line is nasty.
I mean, out of the rookies, stand out for preseason, I think the running back class has really shined.
Yeah.
It's really shining.
Joe Mixon looks like a stud. McCaffrey has looked great.
Yeah.
Who else are we looking at? Dalvin Cook's not done
Cook.
too much yet, but I'm sure he'll be fine. Alvin Kamara had that run.
He's looked amazing. So, yeah, it looks like the running back class this year it's really shining at the moment. Yeah.
There's been some impressive defenders, I think, so far, but again, I don't want to look too much into it. What we go over through the opposite lens here, and we'll try and we'll go through some of our things we've been concerned with, or at least we would be if it wasn't our team. So I'll go first with this one, and I'll go for the low-hanging fruit, the nice, easy one. The Jaguars, they got to be concerned.
Yeah, I mean Blake Bortles. You can't say much else, really.
I mean, I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so.
To quote a most esteemed coach, he is who we thought he was.
Yes, he is, and I don't think anyone's going to let him off the hook.
No. The hype for the Jaguars leading up to pre-season and this season has been ridiculous. I mean, for the Jags of all people. And then it turns out,
Well, defensively, I wouldn't be shocked if they live up to some of that hype and field like a top 5, top 10 unit. But
but then they're going to turn into like so many other teams with good Ds. It's just the offense does nothing, and the offense alone will lose them games. I mean, if you're like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not even that Bortles has been an unproductive starter. You can be mediocre. I mean, look at the Texans. The last couple of years, they'd still win games because their quarterbacks have. Well, Osweiler was a turnover machine, but not even he wasn't a turnover machine on Bortles' level. Bortles' level of turnover is spectacular. It's like Rex Grossman levels.
Yeah, I mean, what was his who were his weapons down in Jacksonville? I can't remember.
He's got weapons. He's
got weapons. Yeah.
You got the two Allens. Their running back group looks okay. Fournette's going to be a stud.
Marquise Lee.
They've got Marquise Lee. Rashad Green's probably a good option as a 4. So there's weapons there.
So basically, what we're saying is Bortles.
The O-line's not great.
So Bortles is basically just going to be a glorified handoff machine for the season. Then
I don't know if they're going to start him. I don't know if you can. I know it's only pre-season, but he has looked really poor.
Who's his back?
There is Chad Henne. There is word they're looking at Chad Henne more as a starter now.
I would have to go with Chad Henne in this case.
Either way, you're not gonna make the playoffs in what may be a more competitive division. I'll throw one more team out there before I throw this open to you guys as well. The Colts stay in the division. I'm very concerned about them. I had them at 8-8 in my season preview. I'm thinking about knocking that number back significantly.
Well, that was going to be my team as well, but
stole your thunder.
Yeah, I mean, I've got another team, but I mean, if any chance for me to bash them, the Colts, I'm going to take it. Yeah. I mean, I think there's reason to concern, especially as we don't know what's going on with the Andrew Luck injury.
They're doomed about him.
They're doomed about him. The offensive line looks as bad as ever. Defensively, they look as bad as ever. It does not look great for them at all.
Quinch, have you watched any of the, or Dan, should I say, have you seen any of the mess that has been the Colts so far?
What, the mess that's slowly progressed over the past, 3 years or so now?
Well, I mean, it's been a mess for a while now. It's just Andrew Luck has made the mess look slightly more reasonable.
Yeah, but the problem I've got is I don't understand how you've got... And okay, this may only just be me. What I consider a generational talent at QB...
It's not just you.
But
that's
you look
the
at
consensus opinion of Andrew Luck.
Yeah, but then you look at what the hell is the GM doing? He's dropped.
Well, it's a new GM this year. It's a new GM. The other GM got fired.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we're seeing the carification of Andrew Luck if we're not careful. Because I mean, it's basically he's going to take too many injuries. That's the thing. The O-line...
He already has.
Yeah, that's the problem. You're basically just going to force out a generational talent because you couldn't draft around him. And they're just... I feel so sorry for him, and I genuinely like Andrew Luck.
With that O-line, he will have a very short career.
The problem they've got is they've lost their centre now until, I think, November. Ryan Kelly was their first-round pick last year. He played well as a rookie. The O-line, if it was healthy, it isn't atrocious because they've Jack Newhart, I think he's their right guard. He's a good player. Costanzo was poor last year, but he's shown he can play. It could have been okay, but missing Kelly, I think, is a big one. And I mean, Luck still isn't throwing the ball. No. So we knew this defense was going to be, it was going to be a slow burn because it's basically an entirely new team defensively. I mean, how many starters have they got returning? Something like 2. It's crazy because they got their safety, Vontae Davis. That seems like about it. So you know there's going to be some growing pains there, but yeah, I think they got the potential to be a real tyre fire. So Arnie, who was your second team?
The other one I've got worried for would be the Buffalo Bills.
The trades. We'll go through those now. Actually, the second trade as well. So. Also traded away a really good young corner in Ronald Darby to the Eagles.
Who then progressed to look fantastic against them.
Yeah, he had like 3 interceptions. It was crazy.
Yeah. I mean, Tyrod Taylor will always worry me, especially with his performance so far in the preseason. He's looked anything but good. I mean, as far as I'm aware, like with their trading away Sammy Watkins, it doesn't leave them with a lot of options there at receiver. It reeks
of tanking for a quarterback next year to me.
It does. I
now
mean,
got 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 thirds next year.
Yeah, I mean, that team has got to go into a complete rebuild now. I think
that's an admission. That's what they're doing.
They had their time and their opportunity to try and get the playoffs, and they couldn't do it. They need to go from the beginning.
Yeah, their offense has been a disaster thus far. Yeah. LaShawn McCoy looks good. Do you think maybe they look to see if they can get any value out of trading LaShawn McCoy?
Possibly, but I don't see why they would. I think that's where they're going to build their offense around.
Yeah, I mean, that would be we're done if they got rid of him.
I think they'd build the offense around the run game.
I'm not sure he'd fetch too much value either, unfortunately. His running back trades not the most profitable thing in the league.
No.
Fair. Is there anyone else that's been a concern for you?
Not too much. I mean, the Jets are the Jets. There's no point speaking about them.
They're a concern by nature of being the Jets.
Yeah. I would have to say the Chargers. I mean, going back to last week, a couple of weeks ago, talking about them, the Chargers. You can see it on the field now with the issues, but they're the same issues we knew about with the injuries and stuff. I mean,
they're going to be breaking in a lot of young players. It'll be down to Rivers once again on the offensive side to just keep this team trucking.
Yeah,
and we'll see how that goes. Dan, anyone worried you so far?
Can I just say the Cardinals and then double down on it?
Yeah. That's fair. I don't think they've looked that bad. The offense concerns me. It just doesn't look like as much chemistry there at the moment.
Everything about the Cardinals concerns me. but aside from obviously, picking my own team, concerns. I'm gonna say I'd agree with Arnie with the Bills. I don't. I think they've just defaulted to go. No, we're going rebuild mode. Get LaShawn McCoy.
Yeah, they have. That's those trades. Yeah, that's.
Oh, who else? Oh, I had a team in mind, but now I've forgotten. I would be concerned for the Vikings if they suffer what happened last year. If those defenders get injured again, the defense goes down. I mean, Bridgewater's still. I think he's on the PUP list, isn't he?
Yeah, he's not playing this season.
No.
Yeah, I mean
they're going to be rolling with Bradford again.
Yeah, I don't think Bridgewater's going to play again in the league. To be honest with you, not as a starter. He's been out too long.
Perhaps my concern with the Vikings would just be the O-line, but they've looked okay. I think the other team I'd probably throw out there is just the Cowboys, because there's just not that they've looked concerned on the field. It's just there's so much around them.
Well, actually, that means we could get on to the elephant in the room with the Zeke suspension for 6 games. Can they actually overcome what I'm guessing is going to be an inevitable 0-6 start?
It's not going to be that bad. I mean, Darren McFadden's still going to do all right behind that line. Dak Prescott has looked very sharp so far.
But it
looks like he's going to be very effective again. It's just.
But the problem is, it's the division they play in. It's such a big handicap.
It's rough. That's my concern. I just think I had them going 10-6, not because I thought they'd be worse this year, but the NFC East around them's got better. Especially the Eagles. They've done a stellar job.
Yeah, I mean, they're playing in what has to be one of the most competitive but coin-flippy divisions in existence. And
they play the AFC West this year, which is the best division in football.
But wait, NFC West? That's
AFC West.
I thought you said NFC. I was like, my division? What are you talking like, crazy fool?
No.
3 years ago, I would have given you it, but no.
Yeah, no, the AFC West, I think, is a tough one.
Yeah, but
it's
just that the Zeke suspension for 6 games might be too monumental for them to realistically get a playoff berth, because they will drop games because of it.
Well, they've got a tough schedule. They've got the first place schedule as well, which means you end up having to deal with, the Falcons, the Packers, the Seahawks. I think it may be a tough ask to make it back to the playoffs. I think the Giants will be good again, because their defense just looks stout. Slightly concerned for the Cowboys. So, anything else anyone wants to throw out there with pre-season or any of the news of the last week or so?
No.
Not
to my knowledge.
Nothing I could.
You good?
No, nothing I could think of. There's been no big news stories for teams active. I mean, obviously you got like Bolden retiring, but that doesn't affect any team.
Yeah, there's a couple of bits. We'll throw a bit out there on Bolden. Like, one of the best run after the catch, move slot type possession receivers I've seen play the game.
Well, I obviously love him because he was a Cardinal, and he was, I think, before Fitz got there, I think he had the record for, rookie receptions in a year or something silly?
I think he's still got that record.
I'm pretty sure Odell Beckham's probably got more.
I'm pretty sure he does. No, Beckham. Bear in mind, Beckham missed like the first 5 or 6 games of his rookie season.
Oh yeah, he did, didn't
So,
he? Yeah. But no, it's kind of a shame. I mean, I was always secretly hoping, considering the caliber of wide receiver the Cardinals have, he might decide to spend the last year of his career with Cardinals.
Maybe he just went to Buffalo and just got so depressed he thought he'd call it a day.
Yeah.
Says a lot about the Buffalo's season.
Yeah, I mean, considering Bolden's played on some dodgy teams in the past. I mean, he played for the Cardinals when Linus was QB, so come on.
Yeah, oh man, that old Cardinals quarterback gravy train. You're lucky you missed out on so much of that.
No, but I did suffer through the man who shall not be named.
Oh yeah, the Derek Anderson year.
Oh.
Good old Derek Anderson. Oh, good times. What other injuries have there been? George Fant, Seahawks losing their left tackle. Not a big name, but I think it's a big injury for a team that was woeful in the trenches last year.
Hey, we get to watch the Benny Hill show with Russell Wilson again this year. Woo!
It's pretty much it. I just want to hear yakety sacks every time he drops back.
Yeah, you got to feel bad for Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those where the amount of big contracts on that team is just hindering their ability to protect the guy.
Yeah.
So that's tough. I think he'll be hard to replace. They were really excited about him as well, from what I've read. So that's rough. What other big injuries have we had? There's been a few. Dolphins. They lost that linebacker Raekwon McMillan, their second-round pick. That's because they look weak. They signed Ray Maualuga to join the team.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
the Patriots got an injury. Was it?
Yeah, they lost their rookie defensive end Derek Rivers for the year.
Yes. Yeah. So there seems to be a lot of rookies going down.
Yeah, there have been actually.
Well, actually
So that's.
Since we're talking injuries, since the last podcast, this actually happened. Obviously, Jay Cutler, who plays now starting QB.
Oh yes, it was official. Tannehill is done for the season. Yeah, I mean we've got our Cutler point. We'll save that for the end as part of the weekly segment. But yeah, anything else anyone wants to throw out there before we hit our weekly topic?
I would say the news that hit today of Trevor Siemian has been named the starter of the Broncos.
That's a good point. I wanted to gloat about this one a little. I've been saying it all off season. Paxton Lynch didn't look ready. He hasn't looked ready, and Siemian has done an admirable job. So I can't say I'm remotely surprised by this. I called it.
I thought he would be starting. I mean, he played fairly well last year. Not fantastic, but he's earned the starting job.
It was difficult circumstances on that Broncos offense last year.
Yeah.
So so we'll move on. So one of the things that's happened since the original episode, Devonta Freeman, now the highest paid running back in the league.
Ridiculous money. I don't think he's.
Yeah, so 6 years, 48 mil, if I've got it right, and like 22.5 guaranteed, something along those lines. Yeah, does anyone think he's worth that kind of money?
No.
He is overpaid. It's overpaid for what he does.
Yeah, I've got to agree here. He is massively overpaid, and obviously it sets a really harmful precedent for other running backs in the league.
It does.
I think as well is he's getting paid a hell of a lot for a team that splits carries, and I think that's what gave him a lot of success was the fact that with the way they split carries.
Well, he's been pretty good even when Coleman wasn't there. It's just that level of production on an offense that's just got so many weapons.
Yeah.
The focal point is Julio. You try and stop Julio number one, and there's so much there. They had one of the best offensive lines in the league last year. He's a good player. I think he's a top 10 back. I think he can do everything. But I don't know. I just thought maybe the Falcons could have been a little smarter with this one.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is he may be a top 10 back, but he's paid number one in the league, and as we discussed this earlier, there are two running backs in the league who are miles better than him.
Well, this is where we're going with this, as you both know. I wouldn't consider him a transcendent talent. Now, we all know there are the two clear transcendent running backs in the league right now, in David Johnson of the Cardinals and Le'Veon Bell of the Steelers. Both will be looking for new deals. Le'Veon Bell playing out on the franchise tag this year. David Johnson will be looking for a new contract. So, word is Le'Veon Bell's turned down offers in the range of sort of 10 million a year, which would make him comfortably the highest paid running back of all time.
But but
comfortably.
he's not just the running back, really, is he? This is the
Yes,
crux.
this is the debate.
This is
So
the crux of
the
the
word
argument.
is, yeah, the word is he wants number one receiver money. So we're looking in the range of sort of 14, 15 million a year.
Yeah.
So we'll start with you, Arnie. Would you pay that for a running back, even one as good as these two guys?
I wouldn't, just because of you just don't pay running backs this amount of money in this day and age. He's a fantastic running back. I love watching Le'Veon Bell. It's his patience that I love.
Use Johnson as well, because I think the situation's the same.
Yeah,
Whatever the other's going to want.
Yeah, and I think it goes without saying with the both of them that what one gets paid, the other will get paid the same, or if not more. But I don't think paying running backs top receiver money is. We're not in that day and age anymore. I just think it's a bit steep for a running back.
Fair enough.
But surely, I mean, the argument. But the things though, they are number one receivers. This is the argument. I mean, they've got.
Well, Le'Veon Bell's not a number one receiver in that offense because he's got Antonio Brown.
Yeah, but on any other team, he would be. I mean, not. Yeah, we went through, the stats earlier, but for receiving, David Johnson, he's per game 54, pretty respectable at the backfield.
That's very good.
Yeah, and
would take
Le'Veon Bell 51. Now the thing is though, you put those all together from yards from scrimmage, and basically half of their production last year for both Johnson and Lev Bell came from receiving out the backfield. So I'd argue, being a dual threat back to like Marshall Faulk style, it does make the point that they should be paid like a receiver and a running back. There's two dimensions to them. They're not Adrian Peterson, who can't catch a ball to save his life. But these are two guys, dual threats. They define the game. They are the playmakers.
They really do. I mean, the Steelers' offense is really good, but when Le'Veon Bell's missing, it is not the same group. My approach would be, I don't know if you can if you're the Steelers, because I just don't think you can afford to pay that. I don't know where they'd find the space with, Roethlisberger, of course, Antonio Brown. They've got a lot of guys. They're in a dodgy cap position. They've got enough playmakers that they can perhaps get by with, obviously, a less talented running back. I think the Cardinals would have a bigger problem. If they lose David Johnson,
well,
what does the offense become?
We do still have CJ, and he did prove he can still play, and CJ's always been able to catch out of the backfield. It's actually quite an underlooked part of his game. But he's not a dynamic.
He's not as dynamic as David Johnson, and your offense. That offense just would not be the same without David Johnson, even with Chris Johnson there. Well, no. And this is coming from a Tennessee fan.
What would that team have looked like last year without David Johnson on offense?
Well, yeah, I mean, okay, it's a fair point, but we're talking two generational talents against one of the best talents of years past. But we have
certainly feel
backup. CJ is probably the best backup running back in the league you could realistically have. I know Arnie's going to argue because Arnie loves his ball.
I'd argue there.
Not even close.
No.
For me.
Not even close. I mean, I look at the Saints. They've got a better backfield.
Titans.
The Titans, yeah. The Cowboys. There's a lot of teams.
Falcons.
Yeah, Falcons. Yeah, there's a lot. Panthers.
You are naming teams who's. I mean, those offenses do like to split carry. The Cardinals don't really do the split carry thing. It's basically David Johnson.
That's because they don't have anyone worth splitting the carries with, would be my argument.
Yeah.
Well, we did have that year where Chris Johnson went on a mad one for a bit, which was excellent. But okay, point taken. But actually, to address something Arnie said, actually, the paying the running backs thing, because obviously running backs don't last that long. I agree with that point, bar one caveat. These guys, because they're catching, they're not always running through the traffic. I mean, Marshall Faulk had quite a good career, as far as I'm aware, didn't suffer any massive injuries because he's split running and catching. So he lasted longer than you'd expect a typical.
No, because the thing is, like, they're still getting as many carries. That's the thing. They're not losing a huge amount of carries. They're just taking more punishment. The argument you get with Bell is, he's had so many injuries. Now, this is my problem as well with paying Bell. He's had, 2 suspensions? Another suspension, he's automatically out for the year, regardless of what it's for.
Yeah.
And he's injured a lot.
Yeah, this is.
So
that's it. Yeah, this.
How can you pay him that kind of money? And for Johnson, similarly, he saw so many touches last year. How long can he manage that workload?
And you've got to expect people to game plan for the Cardinals this year with David Johnson, because they haven't got a lot else on that offense.
Absolutely. So he's public enemy number 1 when you're playing against that team.
I think David Johnson will not have the same year as he had last year. He will have a good year, but nowhere near as good as he had last year.
This plays into the receivers actually stepping up in Arizona, though. I mean, obviously you got Fitz. You can't leave Fitz uncovered. He's still Fitzgerald. He's still gonna smoke you. Problem you've got, if John Brown can get back to form, then we've got a viable threat there. But yes, I agree. It's basically stop David Johnson, you stop the Cardinals.
I think if you're looking at these guys, I'd be thinking 10 mil does sound very fair, to be honest, because it is a lot more than other running backs are getting. I think you may have to stretch it to 12 if you're the Cardinals, because you just can't let that guy leave. No. I would expect David Johnson to get tagged, though, if these kind of questions come up.
Yeah, but the Cardinals cap situation...
Le'Veon Bell, I'm not sure. I wouldn't be shocked to see Le'Veon Bell walk at the end of next year.
I think a lot of people are expecting that as well.
Especially if he gets injured again. Because if he gets injured again, he can't command that kind of money.
Well, he's never played a full 16-game season, has he?
Well, in between the suspensions and playoff injuries, no.
Yeah, so he's basically the Michael Vick of the running back world.
They're never particularly big injuries, but they are injuries. I think he had the one big injury, but that was in a playoff game.
Well, that's the other problem as well, hasn't been with Le'Veon Bell, is if he gets injured too close to playoff time, what was the point in signing him and paying him the money? Well,
that's the thing. We'll move on from that topic, and we got one more thing we'll go over before we start wrapping up. Me and Dan were discussing yesterday. I thought it was quite an interesting discussion. Some of the things that we've changed about the league. Now, I don't think we'll cover all the things we spoke about yesterday because, otherwise I think we'll be here for another hour or two. But the one I want to focus on is the emphasis on the passing game, of course, that's taken over. I mean, it started taking over before you guys even started watching. But it's become even more prevalent, of course, with the new hitting rules. And what I want to focus on is something that they don't necessarily talk about so much, but the detrimental effect I think it's having on finding quarterbacks.
Oh, as well. It's undeniably a massive effect. I mean, I alluded to this earlier, actually, when I said about the pressure to draft a QB and start him immediately. We've had...
Well, that stems from Matt Ryan and Joe Flacco, because both of those guys came in at the same time and both were, very, very successful immediately. And it kind of just changed the perception and it became the norm. Before that, it wasn't.
Yeah, but it's a pass-first league. I mean, you have to be able
Absolutely.
to... If you can't pass effectively... The thing is, you'll get teams who can't run effectively, like, say, the Saints, but who will still do well during the season.
Well, no, the Saints can run effectively. They just choose not to.
Okay, fine, but I mean, teams these days are built from the ground up to pass. There's no denying that, and it puts so much pressure on the QB position. But then, obviously, the rule changes have also made it so that's why the rule changes.
Well, yeah, they go hand in hand. They absolutely go hand in hand. It's easier to pass, so you pass more. And I think what I would argue, and I'll throw this over to Arnie after I bring this sort of point across, but not only are you bringing these guys in immediately, which wasn't happening before, but they're also having to do more. You're looking at most teams having sort of a run-to-pass ratio of about 60% pass to about 40% run or close to it, as opposed to what would have been probably the other way round when I first started watching the game. So not only are you bringing these guys in with less experience and playing in a very different style in college than what they're asked to do, but you're also asking them to do so much more early on.
Yeah,
So
I've got to agree with that as well. It's I don't know. It's the situation is getting a bit out of hand as far as I'm concerned. I mean, there's so many. I mean, as we talked about earlier with Blaine Gabbert, is he could have actually been good if he had sat on his arse for a while and learnt the systems and all of that. But no, chuck him in straight away. I mean, look at Aaron Rodgers, perfect example of sitting a QB.
well, there's been plenty of examples of guys that go both ways. There's guys that have sat and been very successful, guys that haven't. I think you've got to evaluate the player. But I know how I can get Arnie involved in this discussion. What's your thoughts, Arnie, on how difficult it is to play defence against the pass in the modern NFL? All these rules about, defenceless receivers, giving them the same protection that a quarterback gets in the pocket when they're in the act of a catch.
Well, it goes both ways. It's not just the receivers; it's on the quarterbacks as well. I mean, I saw it as a Tennessee fan. I saw it a hell of a lot last year, and in the preseason this year, I've seen it already. There's been a couple of times where I've seen sacks that should have been sacks that have been called back, and we've got a penalty. And just playing cornerback these days, it's so difficult to play cornerback. Not only are these guys receivers freaks these days, but you just can't touch them. You can't touch them, and makes it extremely difficult. Extremely difficult.
Well, this is one of the things I was discussing with Dan. Like, the change is, like, of course, as a Buccaneers fan, you think of the old Tampa 2. So that scheme was you'd give up easy passes, but the caveat was you'd have guys get there and absolutely belt guys, and that was how you forced your incompletions. It was, we'll give you a slant route, we'll give you a 7-yard in route, but then John Lynch or Derek Brooks is going to knock your head off, and you'll get the ball. John Lynch could not play in today's NFL.
No.
He would single-handedly be keeping the league afloat in fines.
There's a lot of players back from then that would be the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it makes the games harder to officiate. I think it leads to a lower standard, personally.
Especially defensively, and receivers as well, because if they changed the rules to where it was more lenient on the defensive side of things, there's going to be a resurgence in receivers struggling to catch at all, because they've not got that little cushion anymore of trying to catch the ball.
Mm.
No, I don't know. I disagree.
It just makes it so hard to officiate. What element of it?
The receivers not being able to catch the ball effectively with the defensive backs.
Well, they would, because they're going to be more worried about the hit than anything, because they know the hit's going to come a lot earlier.
Well, then be prepared to catch over the middle is all I'm going to say. The problem I've got, the biggest issue I have, and I like the receiving part of the game, is this whole established as a runner nonsense. And it's just like, you're not even giving the defense a chance at that point. It's like an automatic X amount of yards, because they have to establish themselves as a runner.
No, because that's the thing I was trying to explain. The way it now works is when the guy is in the process of the catch, he's got the protection a quarterback in the pocket does. So you have to hit him, in the strike zone. I think you can even get a receiver in the knees. It's just you can't go for the kill shot like you used to be able to, and players were encouraged to back in the day. And whilst I think the idea behind it is okay, I think it's impossible, especially at the speed of the game, to properly manage.
Yeah. I can understand the head-to-head hits. I can completely understand that. But
well,
I like good defensive football, and it takes away from the game.
Well, that's the other point as well. We were discussing yesterday is the head-to-head hits. It's the problem. The argument that's been argued forever is the helmet-to-helmet hits on running backs, or if receivers who have lowered their shoulder to truck someone. You will always get flagged on the play if you accidentally, through the motion of the tackle, make helmet-to-helmet contact with with the receiving player, and it always gets flagged, and it always annoys me because they've lowered their shoulder as well, but the rest will flag the defender for it.
Well, that's the issue, and this is where I think, and a lot of people may disagree with this, but I think there needs to be essentially another official watching the game in the booth at all times. And I think he should be watching plays in slow-mo. So, you've got your 40-second play clock, and I think you tone down the rules a bit and you add a bit more grey area. So you have a guy watching it in slow-mo, and he goes, okay, that guy got hit in the head, but it wasn't malicious, and maybe the way the guy's gone to catch the ball has made it so that he gets hit in the head. Because I can't remember what game it was last year, but there was one where a guy was going to make a tackle, and because the ball was thrown a bit low, he's reaching down, and as a result gets hit in the head on what's a perfectly clean, legitimate tackle attempt, and it ends up being a 15-yard penalty because the quarterback threw a bit of a duff pass.
Yeah.
And, I think you need to have some of that context. You can see when a play's a dirty play. I'm not an official, but I can see when a play is dirty, and most fans can.
Yes.
And I think you need to try and implement that.
Well, yeah, it's not hard.
To try.
If it's a dirty play, he basically goes like this. Is his name Dante Perfect? Yes, it was a dirty play.
No, but you can see when there's intent to, hit someone in the head. It's not difficult to tell. Whereas the incidental stuff, I know you want to get rid of it, but flagging incidental things isn't helping get rid of it.
No, it's not.
Because it's just part of the game.
I think the one thing that annoys me the most is...
And it is not standard.
Yeah, it is because of this, how many pass interference calls that get called per week in the NFL.
Or or if you brush the quarterback's face mask with your little finger, that gets called.
I hate those ones. Those are the worst. But again, that's where it's context. Like, anyone can say that, all right, he touched his head, it's a flag, but everyone watching knows that shouldn't be a foul. Everyone. And it's similar to some of these rules with catching. They're so illogical. If you explain them to someone who's not a fan of the game, they don't understand it because it doesn't make sense. And I think that's the problem.
Yeah, but and plus you've got the health of the game. All these flags being thrown out for what's basically incidental contact in a full contact sport really slows it down to the point where it could almost be unwatchable to some people. I mean, I know we've all sat through flag games. I mean, you're a Bucks fan.
Oh yeah, I mean the Bucks have been as flagged as anybody in the last 5 years. It's been horrific.
Yeah, I mean both of you know better than anyone else. Flags are prizes for your teams back in the day, anyway. But it just slows the game down, just way too much.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I think is a misnomer, and I think this comes from the networks and that the NFL runs with it, is this idea that more points equals better football and better ratings. And I don't think that's been the case at all. The ratings have dropped, and I think a lot of that is the standard of defensive play isn't as high, and it's just affected the game. And it's not the players' fault. The quality of the defenders is as high as ever. It's just the difficulty with which playing defence and all these penalties, I think it makes for a worse product.
Yeah, well, it basically hamstrings the game. I mean, I already know the answer to this, but Arnie, what was one of your favourite games from last year that you watched?
The Cardinals-Seahawks draw.
Yep. And how brutal was that game?
It was a damn brutal game. I mean, yeah, that game, there was a lot of bad defending in that as well, but
there was a lot of bad play in just about every facet.
It was, but it was a very defensive game, and it was very enjoyable to watch, for me, anyway. Whereas I think some of the really high-scoring games from last year were probably some of the most boring games for me to watch.
I don't mind a high-scoring game when it's because the team's executing well, but when it's because, there's pass interference flags up and down the field, and bad play, I don't think it makes for good TV. I think it comes from this kind of highlight reel culture, and I think that is part of the problem, that the sport hasn't gotten out of that. Like, people have access to live games now.
Yeah.
So, if you think back to 20, 25 years ago, even longer than that, people could only watch one, maybe 2 games a weekend. People didn't have NFL Sunday Ticket and Game Pass. So, yes, the highlights and having the pretty-looking fancy plays was all well and good, but now people want good, competitive, well-executed, clean games. And this emphasis on offensive football, which, they also dress some of it up as player safety, but it's a little bit of both. Yeah. The standard is not as high, I think, as when I first started watching the sport.
No. I think that's the thing, is defenders are making a lot more sure because of the penalties of the hits and stuff. So I think you're getting a worse defensive play on the ball because defenders are being more cautious, a lot more cautious, and they could be playing to a higher potential.
Yeah, we're seeing. Yeah, the type of receivers like your Anquan Boldin, he can't show like what made Anquan Boldin. He can't demonstrate in today's NFL.
Yeah, because defenders aren't doing what they used to.
Yeah, those tough catches that made him over the middle of the field, they don't exist in today's game.
That's the thing as well. No. I mean, if we're looking at the rule changes, not just if we look at the offensive side of the ball now, you'll notice a lot more of the wide receivers, a lot more. You tend to favour the more speedy. I'm not going to say delicate, but if you know what I mean, the more the game tends to favour the guys who are speedier, not that physical, off the line kind of thing, because no one does it anymore. I mean, how many people press off the line now? What, Patrick Peterson, Sherman,
the Seahawks play a lot of press. The Broncos. It's a scheme thing. Some teams still play press. It's just it's hard to find press corners.
Yeah, but then
it always has been, frankly, regardless of the.
Yeah, but then you get like players like Odell Beckham, who went through that massive whinge fest about being played physical off the line a year or so ago, and I'm just like, that's the name of the game. What you can't just expect to get off the line freely, but that's kind of the rule changes kind of foster that mentality in receivers now.
Are you aware of historically when that change happened?
Which one, the 5-yard press or the?
Yeah, are you aware of why that happened?
That was the Raiders, I believe. Like most rule changes.
No, it wasn't. It was. It's the Mel Blount rule. It was the Steelers corner.
Oh,
he was basically so good at press that they changed the rules because he'd basically just mug guys up and down the field.
Oh yeah, I remember now. Yeah, well, okay, that's fair enough.
But that rule, I'm fine with. That's made the game better. Like, I don't want to just be watching receivers and cornerbacks just fighting down the field.
Well,
but it's some of the hitting stuff. I think is it's made playing defense very difficult. It's changed like the safety position and the linebacker position just are not the same as they used to be.
I was actually just about to bring this up. Actually, it doesn't help. Obviously, the safety position. There's so many. A good safety in the league today, so rare. But with linebackers as well, do you think, I think he was actually asked this question once, but do you think the 2000s era Ray Lewis could play in today's game? With all these rule changes?
He could, but the difference is he was always such a good athlete. He was a good pass coverage backer. I think really the 2000s and where you saw that shift where you think the two preeminent linebackers of the 2000s were Derek Brooks and Ray Lewis, and they were both undersized, speedy coverage linebackers. They both played the run incredibly well. They're two of the best players at the position of all time. But that's the way the league moved.
Oh,
and
see, that's interesting because
if you're looking at the 90s and the 80s where it's a lot more power running and stuff, there's a reason those two guys fell in the draft. They were both picked in the 20s.
Oh, okay.
It's because people were scouting Derek Brooks as a safety.
Really?
Yeah. Teams wanted to play him as a safety.
That's interesting because if I remember correctly, one of the interviews about this very topic actually he did on one of the NFL shows I've seen is he's actually come out and said that he doesn't think he'd be able to, because of the rule changes, play the way he used to and as aggressively as he used to.
Like I said earlier, you couldn't play the Tampa 2 the way the Buccaneers did in the early 2000s. You couldn't play it in today's game.
I was going to say
it's similar with the Ravens, like the way the Ravens hit people, no chance.
And like how the Jeff Fisher era Titans on defense used to play. That does not hold.
Oh,
up.
they didn't care. The Jeff Fisher Titans ignored flags.
That's because it's Jeff Fisher.
Yes.
Have all the flags you want. Flags mean prizes to a Jeff Fisher Titans team.
Well, especially when the starting corner was Cortland Finnegan, yeah.
Finnegan. You had a dirty O-line as well, Michael Roos.
We still have a dirty O-line.
That's true.
No, you don't have a dirty O-line.
That's why
you have a proper O-line. It's a man's O-line.
But this is why now I think
You say
watching-
that older than all of them.
watching sort of the O-line and defensive line go at it at the moment is probably some of the most hard-nosed football you will see.
Oh,
Because-
it's the one bit of the game that is still pure.
Yeah,
Has
and
changed. Like,
it's why I love watching the O-line play at the moment, because it's hard-nosed, it's brutal, it's so fun to watch.
yeah, same with the run game. The run game is
Still the
run
same. Oh yeah,
run
and this is why I will be a Titans fan forever, because we will always go on that run game. We will always be that O-line team.
game. The day you're not, that's the day you go on strike.
Yes, it is.
Fair enough. Well, with that, we'll start wrapping it up there. But we got one more section to cover, and this is, I said we're going to do this last time, and we're going to stick by it. The one utterly stupid story of the week, or fortnight in this case. And this time, once again, the Miami Dolphins are involved, and it's Jay Cutler looks absolutely ready after 10 plays and like
Six.
7 throws, including
6 throws. Yeah.
2 dump offs and a couple of penalties. Like, yep, the Dolphins are better off with him. It's like, wow.
But don't you know, Conboy?
Wow.
Jay Cutler is Miami's saviour. That's what he is.
Yeah, because he threw a couple of good. Now, don't get me wrong, he looked fine, but come on, I want more of a sample size.
Yeah, but fine isn't going to win you a Super Bowl.
See,
No one's going to make it look like you're going to win a Super Bowl unless he threw 7 passes and every single one was a beautiful touchdown pass in tight coverage. Then
the way they're going on about it is like that.
It's a non-story. He looked reasonable. That should be the story. Jay Cutler turned up. He didn't make any mistakes. It was fine.
Yeah.
see,
To say, oh, it wasn't a tyre fire, and even if he had been a tyre fire, it still wouldn't be a story.
no, see, I kind of feel bad because
It shouldn't have been.
we're kind of ragging on Lee's team here, and he's not here to respond.
We're not, no, because this isn't the Dolphins that we're ragging on. It's the media making this
Oh,
into a
it's
story.
Jay Cutler. I mean,
There's nothing to say about. I know.
it,
I mean, Jay Cutler's good for the league because he's one of the best meme-generating quarterbacks in league history.
yeah, man, smoking Jay Cutler don't give a damn.
That website is wonderful. It should be boring by now, but it's not.
But they are going on about this story like he's been out of the league for years.
I know.
When he's been out of the league an off season.
If he'd been out of the league, like, even 1 season, but if it'd been like 2 years, maybe fair enough. I still think it would be a little bit ridiculous. But he basically missed a few weeks of training camp and mini camps.
Well, the thing is that they're
So it's basically like he bruised his shoulder or something during the first practice and came back.
I think Mariota missed more time than he did.
Andrew Luck missed way more time.
Exactly.
They're treating Jay Cutler like he's Brett Favre coming back into the bloody league. It's ridiculous.
Well,
They are a bit.
Miami, like, as kind of disappointing as that team has been, they're still a big market. People still care.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at the moment, I think this is just Miami fans trying to grab whatever hope they can at this point, because let's be honest and doubt.
First off, right, no, you need to understand the Miami fan base. The Miami fan base doesn't look for hope. It does the opposite. It's a fan base that despairs and assumes the worst.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, the thing is though, with the whole Jay Cutler situation, as far as I'm concerned, straight down the line, there's only 2 ways this goes. He either becomes their saviour and plays extremely well, or he craps the bed and he just does what Jay Cutler does.
No, it's exactly.
My position is he'll be all right, and they'll finish like 8-8.
It's exactly as Lee said a couple of weeks ago. The numbers are very similar with him and Tannehill under Gase. He will probably have the same exact year as he had under Gase.
He'll be all right.
He will be okay. He will make this normal Cutler mistakes, they will go, as you said, 8-8. There you go, job done.
So
they're not going to be challenging for playoffs or anything like that. But
the thing is, that team's been so beat up. They've been hit pretty hard with injuries. Like they may not be as good next year, and it'll be hard to blame him. That team's got a lot of injuries right now. It's
they
tough.
had to do what they had to do.
So
Yeah.
are we looking at Jay Cutler like basically the interim QB then for 1 year only?
I don't know about that. It could be a longer term thing because they can get out of the Tannehill contract next year.
If Cutler looks good, they will give him another deal.
Yeah, if Cutler turns up and has like a borderline Pro Bowl type season, I would have no doubt they'd happily cut ties with Tannehill and roll with Cutler for a couple of years.
That's the weirdest. I've never heard Pro Bowl and Jay Cutler in the same sentence before. That's really odd.
Bear in mind, he did lead like the Bears to an NFC Championship game once.
Didn't they have a half decent D though?
Yeah.
Isn't this the Brian
He
Urlacher
didn't
D?
push away from offense. He had Matt Forte.
Well,
Cutler is okay. He's always got far more criticism than he deserves.
Yeah.
Partly because, he's captain don't care in terms of the way he carries himself.
The O-line hasn't exactly helped.
Yeah. I mean, the way he carries himself is kind of like Eli, except Eli's is more of kind of a dopey, kind of sad way, whereas Cutler's is just kind of a meh, like nihilistic, we're all going to die anyway, so who cares kind of way.
See, Eli always struck me, and if there's any listeners in the States, they may not get this. Eli always struck me as kind of the Mr. Bean QB. He wins, but he doesn't know how he got.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, shucks, I threw my 4th interception. Dang it. Coach is going to feel mad. Whereas Jay Cutler's like, I'm just going to go home and chain smoke and listen to Radiohead.
So he's the emo QB.
Nah, he's not emo. He's like 90s alternative grunge QB.
Yeah.
Bordering on goth, but he's not quite gone there yet. That's Jay Cutler.
Emo kids on South Park. That's what he is.
That would be
the goth kid. Yeah.
If Jay Cutler scores a rushing touchdown and does like the emo goth kid in South Park dance. How can I call it? The goth kid dance. Yeah, from South Park is a touch celebration. I will go buy a Jay Cutler jersey.
I want to see that happen now.
You didn't want to see that before?
Well, I've only just thought of it.
So all we can hope is somehow Jay Cutler's listening and takes inspiration from this.
Yeah.
He wouldn't care enough about what we're saying.
Oh, yeah, true.
Giving way too much credit. But we'll finish up with one more thing. Of course, this week it's the 3rd week of pre-season, the dress rehearsal as they call it. So, is there anything we're interested in seeing? Any players? Anything from our own teams? Just a quick 1 or 2 points. So we'll start with you, Arnie.
No injuries. I'm going to keep it simple.
That's it.
No injuries. That's all I want to see. Just no stupid mistakes, no turnovers. I want to see some of these rookies. I don't think Corey Davis is going to be playing this week. I'd like to see Eric Decker a bit more involved.
Davis plays week 1 at this rate.
The news coming out is he's looking at starting week 4 of preseason. Should be ready week 1. I'd like to see a little bit of DeMarco Murray. I don't really care for seeing him too much, but I just want to see he's healthy. Again, I think receivers, we've had a few little injuries over the last couple of weeks. I'd just like to see a few of them on the field and improve, but that's about it.
Fair enough. Dan?
Cardinals play better, please. Pretty please. I will sell you my non-existent firstborn if you at least play competently.
You just want to see a reason for hope.
Yeah,
I'd like to see our kicker get an opportunity at like 6 field goals and make all of them. That would be nice. Come on, Nick Folk. Sort it out.
It's really weird for a team fan to be like, what's the one thing you hope you can do? Execute field goals. It's like the most basic thing to do. And the Bucks just can't do. I mean, I can't talk. I had Kansas last year, but
You know, the saddest thing is when we drafted Aguayo, I was peeved because I was like, second round pick on a damn kicker with our roster lacking talent and depth. That's stupid. But at least we'll have a good kicker for the next decade. No, that didn't happen.
The football gods saw your pick and said, "No, we're not allowing this to happen."
We'll double down on your stupidity. But no, I just want to see, much like Arnie said, no injuries. We've stayed healthy thus far. Let's keep that the case. And yeah, I just want that. Frankly, the starters have looked good. Just keep it up. In terms of the rest of the league, some of the teams that have just looked shocking on offense, I'd like to see them hold up a little better. Like, I'm looking at you, Jets and the Bills. Some of them, it must just be awful. I've been there going into the season when you've got an offense that's just so poor in execution. You just know things are going to be bad. So I'd like to see some of the bad teams give their fans at least reason for hope.
Yeah, I mean, are there any?
I'd agree with that.
Any legitimately bad teams that you think might actually shock us from just performance or play wise?
What teams that have looked bad thus far?
Yeah, that somehow pull it out week one and just start playing really well. Like the Vikings at the start of last year really surprised.
The Vikings could. The Vikings certainly could, because I think they've got some talent there. If the O-line comes together, then I think they could be pretty impressive. The Bengals have looked a bit up and down. I think if they've got a lot of unproven guys, a lot of youngsters, that I think they, as a whole, could be quite impressive. But they could go the opposite way. They could also be god awful. So those would be two.
I think the one team that could surprise people would be the Bears this year.
Possibly. I said this in the season preview. I think the roster's got more talent on it than people think.
Yeah.
It's just whether it's kind of like with the Bengals, whether it all comes together, I'm not sure.
Yeah. But it could be a surprise, but more than likely, probably.
I mean, if that team wins 8 games, that would be a surprise.
Exactly.
I wouldn't be shocked. I'd be shocked if they go above 500, then consider me shocked.
Yeah.
Oh, see, my only surprise this year will be if the Titans beat the Colts. So
I can see them doing it once. Twice, that would be like...
That would be pure shock. It's our Super Bowl.
Yeah,
that would be our Super Bowl. That's why it's Monday Night Football. Yeah.
Super Bowl year Titans.
That would be crazy.
Colts-wise.
And on that note, we'll wrap this one up. But thanks you guys for doing the recording. We'll do the same again next week. I'm going to go continue getting hyped for Madden in 2 hours.
2.5 hours.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure I think Arnie's been watching the countdown in the background this entire time.
You're not mistaken.
I need to have a nap. I got work at 9 o'clock. I need to try and get 3 or 4 hours of Madden in before I have nap number 2 and go to work. It's my plan. The question is, Ultimate Team or Franchise Mode? But anyway, enough about that. So, thank you guys thank you guys so much for watching. It's been a pleasure as always. I'm sure these two have probably enjoyed it. He's hoping. As always, check out some more of the show. We'll be finishing up the season previews this week. So next week should be a bit more adventurous, going over some game film, some X's and O's, some new stuff. So I hope you check that out. And as always appreciative. It's been a pleasure. Have a good one. And go Bucks.